Welcome to the Workforce Connections podcast, where we discuss workforce development in Southern Nevada. Here's your host.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the WC podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, my friend Dr. Camilla Dorand. She is the publisher and owner of Red Rock City Lifestyle and South Vegas City Lifestyle magazines. There's a lot more to her, too, which is why she's here, and we're going to talk about those things. So welcome, Camilla.
Thank you so much, Jaime, for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So I know we've been planning this for a while. Mm-hmm. You're very busy. So to get started, share with our listeners and our viewers, where was Camilla born? Where did you grow up? Because that's what I really loved hearing about. It's something that's not evident because you've mastered this language now, but unpack for us how that all happened. Again, take us through your childhood, maybe all the way to your first job.
Okay. I was born in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm not going to say the year.
But that sounded Portuguese right there.
Did it? Yeah.
For sure.
Well, the Latina comes out every now and then, right? I can't deny my roots.
Yeah.
So I was born in São Paulo, Brazil. And when I was 6 years old, I went to live in Nigeria, in Africa. So I spent my formative years there. And that's how I mastered the English language, because I learned how to read and write in English before I did in Portuguese, because I went to an American school. And then when I was 10, I went back to Brazil. I didn't know how to read and write in Portuguese, so I had to repeat the fourth grade. And I finished my studies there. My first job was actually at 14. My dad always told me, you got to start working, make your own money. He always pushed me to be independent. And I worked at a children's clothing store. It was called Proibido para Menores, which is, forbidden for...
minors.
Actually, it's Proibido para Maiores, sorry. So forbidden for...
Children's clothes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was so fun.
In São Paulo.
In São Paulo, yeah. I loved it. And my parents always made sure that I would continue with my English speaking, English training. So I quickly, to make good money, because a lot of people in the late 80s, early 90s didn't really speak English well. So to make good money, I started teaching English, private tutoring. And quickly I became an interpreter without any course, but, I can switch Portuguese, English super fast, like natural. And and with all that money that I was making, I just... backpacked around Europe in 1997.
Wow.
I've traveled the world, and I landed here in Vegas almost 8 years ago in the U.S. In beginning of 2013. So I don't know how far you want me to go with the introduction.
This is great. You've dropped some number. I was trying to do the math, but you're not giving me enough numbers yet. So, but you did talk about the late 80s, and I know you and I, again, off camera, have talked about, I've been to Brazil too. But I remember now a trip around 1985. My last trip as a merchant marine was to Santos, which is how I got to Sao Paulo, because we got to the port of Santos and then traveled, 45 or an hour to Sao Paulo.
Yeah, it's super close.
Yeah. Have you been to Santos?
Yeah, one of my uncles used to live there. So I went back to Brazil from Nigeria in 1985. And my dad could not leave Nigeria. He had been arrested for political reasons when we were living there. That's why we were shipped overnight to Brazil, my brothers and I. And so my uncle, his older brother, and he would take me to Santos every weekend to spend time with his, my cousins and the family, just to take me away from my home environment.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, for us, for me, one of the things I'll never forget was in Santos, they have this club called Santos Football Club, where not only was Neymar, the most recent Brazilian star, but the greatest one of all, Pelé, came out of Santos Football Club as well.
Yeah, great players.
Yeah, and famous little town. But again, I want to dive into your professional journey, which is very rich, because we've only just started. You've took us, away so far, but... Now you're a publisher of thriving magazines. I have one of them right here in front of me, which is the latest issue in June.
You should open the page where you're at.
We will. But before we get there, I found it fascinating how you got here, because a lot of us, in this podcast, we talk about how do we select careers when we're young, how do young people, and that's part of our work that we do at Workforce Connections. We work with a population between 16 and 24. with career exploration and plug them into the labor market. And so again, I know that when I was young, I never dreamed and said, one day I'm going to be executive director of a local workforce board.
Right.
And I don't know if you dreamt of being the publisher, but take us again through that journey. Because I know you're at least a licensed clinical professional counselor, LCPC, but there's so much more. Your career journey includes being a legal professional, an author, a speaker, a mental health advocate. And so kind of paint that tapestry for us a little bit. Fill in the blanks.
Some call me crazy. And so when I was about to graduate high school, which is when we have to, choose a career, and my family is very conservative, and they, everybody had to go to school. Everybody had to go to college and higher education. And my dad said, Camilla, you can do anything you want in life. You can choose to do anything as long as you're a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Yeah. So it was very limited. And doctor had never crossed my mind. I was super lost growing up because of my dad's arrest, and my mom started drinking. So, there were some family personal issues that just made me a rebel, an angry, child and teenager. And so I had no idea what I wanted to do, but my dad limited really well. So there were no doctors in the family. He was an engineer. All my uncles were engineers as well, except for the oldest one. He was a judge. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to go to law school. It's the humanistic of the three. It's the humanistic career. So I chose that. And
still in Brazil, right?
Yeah, still in Brazil. This was back in 1993. I started law school. So law school in Brazil is an undergrad. I started law school in 1993. I hated it. Oh my God, Jaime, I hated it. I just kept going because I didn't know what I want to do. I would tell my mom, I don't like this. She's like, but what are you going to do? I have no idea. Well, keep going. I found, I started my internship, started working in the field. That made it much better because I would then understand the practical life of a lawyer.
Yep.
But the school, I winged classes. I would travel, and it just wasn't for me. But I was living under my father's roof, so I got to comply.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So in 1996, and then parallel to being an intern, I was also teaching English to make money and translating documents for engineering companies to go on bids. I've always loved working because my dad really instilled that in me from a very young age. And I'm the first of 3 children. And, as the prime child, I think we are more ambitious. We are supposed to set an example. Our parents are harder on us usually when we're the
carry
first
a little
born.
bit more responsibility.
Yeah, we do. And so he's like, okay, he wants me to work. I'm going to work. No problem. So I always loved working. I don't see myself retiring in the traditional sense of the word. I always want to be productive and keep going. So working for me was always like freedom. I always found freedom and passion in everything that I did. Even as a legal student, the work was really what I liked. Not the books, not the tax codes, not all of that. But just working was my passion. And in 1996, I got my first corporate job at PricewaterhouseCoopers back in Brazil. And that lasted 6 months because I became extremely unhappy trying to fit into a box. And I'm not an inbox kind of person. I know that now. And looking back at all my career choices, I realized that I was the most unhappy trying to be a lawyer and then trying to be a therapist.
What kind of law at that time in that company? What kind of law?
That was tax law. Tax law. And so in the beginning of 1997, so 6 months after I had started working at Pricewaterhouse, my mom comes into my bedroom and I was on the floor. It was a Sunday. And I had like really weight fluctuation when I was 14 to 24. I was very obese. And I had lost a lot of weight. Then when I started working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, I gained it all back. And she's like, what's going on? You look so unhappy. You look miserable. And I had the tax code in front of me. I had to study because I had a test the next day. And I'm like, Mom, I'm so unhappy, so unhappy. She said, well, if you didn't have any care in the world, if you could like grant one wish for yourself, what would it be? I said, I would just go travel. And I was in the 4th year of law school.
Wow.
And she said, well, why don't you do it? I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, do you have money? I'm like, yeah, I have money. And the dollar was 1-to-1 with the Brazilian real.
Oh, my goodness.
And this back in 1997, $7,000 was a lot of money for a student, right?
Absolutely.
And I said, yeah, I have money. She's like, go, then go. I said, but what about dad? My house, my rules.
Yeah.
She's like, don't worry about your father. I'll talk to him. I'll take care of it. I'm like, okay. So this was a Sunday. I'm like, put the tax law aside and just, started researching where am I going to go, getting a backpack, because I wanted a backpack around Europe. And I was one of the pioneers back in Brazil. Nobody did this kind of stuff back then in 97, especially in a traditional social class and all that. And the next day, Monday, I went to Pricewaterhouse. I resigned. Then I went to the university. I dropped out.
Wow.
And I just started planning my trip. And then a couple months later, I took off. I went to England. I fell in love with London. I never planned to stay. It was just my first stop. And I found a job as a nanny. Because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to stay here, I don't want to go through the money that I have. So 2 days later, I found a job.
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. For 4 boys.
Wow.
I worked for an architect. She had 4 boys. And she didn't want anything to do with the children. They were like 1-year-old, 3-year-old, 5 and 7, super young. And I'm like, I'm 21 years old. I'm not going to be their mother. So that lasted 6 weeks. And then I just started traveling. I went to France, Greece, Italy. I even lived in a kibbutz in Israel.
Wow.
And I never wanted to go back to Brazil. I never wanted to go back to law school. But my parents were celebrating their 25th year anniversary that year. And so I ended up meeting them back in Denmark because we had an exchange student who was from Copenhagen.
Wow.
And we went to visit her. And when I saw my dad, my heart just shrunk, after almost a year of being gone. So I said, I'm going back home.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going back home. But I didn't tell them. I didn't tell anybody. And in December of that year, I bought my ticket to go back to Brazil. And I asked my brother, he was the only one in my family who knew because he had to unlock the front door for me to go get into the house. Wow. And my best friend at the time, we didn't drive. We didn't have a car. Or I didn't have a car. And I said, hey, Chininha is her name. Can you ask your mom? Can you guys go pick me up at the airport on this date? I'm coming back. So they did. And then they drove me to my parents, to our condo where we lived. And it was 1 a.m. when I went into the house. And I woke my dad and I woke my mom up. And
you did in the middle of the night. Wow.
It was like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
1 o'clock in the morning. And and then I just re-enrolled in law school. And that was a struggle in itself because all of my peers were already graduating.
Yeah.
And I was behind because of the choice that I had made. And my mom was like, Camilla, don't you dare regret anything that you did. You have a life experience that nobody does.
Sure.
The things you've lived this past year, they are priceless, And I'm like, okay. And so I kept going. And it took me 3 times to pass the bar exam. I graduated. It took me 3 times to pass the bar because I had no idea what I was reading. Yeah. I had winged law school, remember? Yeah. So, but I did study for the third law, the bar exam. I did study for that. So I ended up passing the bar in 2000. And I set up my own private practice because nobody would hire me because I had such an unconventional resume. Law student who was also teaching English, who quits on the 4th year, only stays 6 months at PricewaterhouseCoopers, comes back, continues teaching English, interns at several places because I was trying things out, works for a political campaign. Who's going to hire me with all this eclectic background? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to open my own practice. And I did. And then right after that, I started my master's in legal studies so I could become a professor. And I did that. it's like, I'm just going to do it. Like, just do it. And I got married to my first husband in December of 2006. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm out of my parents' house. That's great. And in February of 2007, I went to have my astrological chart read with my first husband's aunt. And she said, Camilla, I see that law is saturated in your life here on the area of work. I'm like, oh my God, finally someone understands what I've been trying to tell them, you know? And she said, well, you have to work with image. I'm like, image? But what am I going to do with image? She's like, I don't know. That's for you to figure out. It says image. So I went home and I'm like, what am I going to do with image? Am I going to be a reporter, an anchor, a model, a journalist, a marketing person, a photographer, like so many things that are related to image. Mm-hmm. And after 30 days of soul searching, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do with others what I did to myself. So the backstory is I lost 90 pounds on my own. I started losing weight when I was 25, 26. And then naturally, after 3.5 years, I was down to my weight. And for the first time in my life, I could buy clothes that regular people wore. Because in Brazil, you never had like extra large. Yep. We didn't have that in the culture. We don't have, like today, yes, we do. But back then, we didn't have specific clothing for extra large. So I spent my teenage years and my young adulthood just wearing sweats and wearing leggings or having seamstress have to like make tailor things for me. So for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, I can go into a store and buy clothes. Yeah. And I went crazy, Jaime. I bought so many clothes, like my wardrobe like literally came down because of the weight of the hangers and the clothes.
That's funny.
So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do to others what I did to myself, because I realized how insane I was just buying, because I was in love with, you know, myself and the clothes and the style. So I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a personal stylist. Wow. I'm going to be a pioneer in the country. Wow. That I thought, right? But then I started to research and I'm like, oh, this already exists. I'm not going to be a pioneer, but that doesn't matter. I'm just going to do it anyway. And I enrolled in all the courses that I could. And I studied and I studied and I studied. And I started to talk to people. Hey, do you want to be my guinea pig? I just quit law and I'm doing this. And people are like, you're crazy, leaving like a safe career to do this. I'm like, I didn't ask for your opinion. Do you want to be my guinea pig? Mm-hmm. And so I started working with people and, you know, my friends, the people that I knew, they were like, oh my God, you're so brave. You're so brave. And they started talking about me to their friends. And all of a sudden, I decided that I wanted to be on TV. I'm like, I want to be on TV now because I was born for the spotlight. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but I need a new name. I can't go by Camilla. It's Camilla Teixeira de Freitas in Portuguese. I can't go by that name. It's so boring, so traditional. I need something catchy. And my ex-husband, my first husband, Leonardo Matias. So I'm like, you know what? Mila Matias. That's what I'm going to call myself. And there, Mila Matias was born.
Your artistic name. Wow.
Yeah. And so my friends talked to others, and all of a sudden I got invited to become a guest or a co-host on a national radio show, a weekly national radio show to talk about style. And it was just the start of online shows back in 2007 in Brazil. So I was also doing that. And I wouldn't have no idea what I was talking about because I was still like 3-4 months into my courses. So I would study the night before, make all these notes, fake it till you make it. Yeah. I would tell people that I had been doing that for 3-4 years, you know. It was so much fun, much fun. And then after 6 months in the radio, the format changed. So they didn't need me anymore. So I kept just, you know, moving forward. And I'm like, okay, now I have to start getting my name out there. And so I contacted local newspapers and magazines, strategic ones, who had like lifestyle columns. And I offered to write columns for free. I said, hey, I would love to write, you know, a monthly column for you for free. And they said, of course, for free, yeah. And that's how I started to get my name out there. Then I would go to networking events. And I ended up meeting my first PR. And I said, I want to be on TV. She's like, I'm going to help you. So 3 months later, I got an audition for the first show, makeover show on a Brazilian major network like CBS, NBC. And it was me, a dentist, a dermatologist, and a hairstylist. So the three of us would work on the contestants or the participants to have them look younger than their age. And then they would interview people on the streets. How old do you think she is? And so Mila Matias was on TV. And then I published my first book in 2009, and I published my second book in 2011.
And are the books about image? Okay.
Image, yeah. My first book was just me. The second book, and it was more of a fun book. So I chose a few friends, and I said, hey, can you be my model? Because I said, oh, you have this kind of body, this personality, you have to wear this. This looks good on you. This pattern, yes. This color, no. And they're like, yeah, I'll be your model. I'm like, great. So I would arrange a day. Okay, so I'm coming to your house on this day to talk about clothing and outfits. And they're like, great. So I would go into their house, their homes, and they're like, but where are the clothes? What are we going to wear? I said, well, we're going to go into your closet, and we're going to find clothes that are yours, because that's what the book's about. Because people say they never have anything to wear. And that's how the first title of my book was born.
Wow.
Who says you have nothing to wear?
I like that.
Yeah.
You were the queer's eye before the queer's eye.
Yes.
Wow.
It was so fun. And then my second book, I went to visit a politician. He was the assistant for the former big governor in São Paulo. I don't even remember why I was going to see him. But on my way there, I'm like, oh, I'm going to invite him to write a book with me on image for candidates. And when I get there, we start talking. And then at the end of the conversation, I'm like, hey, Sergio, do you want to write a book with me? He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, this is my vision. The elections are coming up next year. Have you seen how they dress? Like, really? It's all about the color, the fit, the this, the that, the message that they want to show. We don't have any book like this in the market. Let's write a book together. So it's like, let me think about it. So he contacted a friend of his, a journalist, and the two of us wrote the book. He put his name on the book. But then the second book was born, which was it was like a style guide for candidates to power. That's the literal translation in Portuguese. And for those who are already there, that was the second.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so I was in the top of my career. I became the national reference for image and lifestyle in Brazil really quickly. And then I had cancer. Back in 2012, I had thyroid cancer. And I made a deal with God on the day that my diagnosis came out. I said, if you want me to die, I will die super happy, because I've done so much with my life. I was 37 years old. I've been, I've forgiven myself, my mother. I've lost all this weight. I've reinvented myself. I've donated my eggs. I have 2 biological girls.
Wow.
I've traveled the world, If you want to take me, if this was my contribution to the world, I'm ready to die. But if you want me to stay, make me an instrument of your will and help me transform people's lives. Put me in front of people that I can really help. And 6 months later, after my surgery and my treatment, I had no money, Jaime. I had no money left, because all my savings, I used to live with my dog, went to pay all the bills. And São Paulo, being the metropolis that it is, it's a very expensive town to live in. And I came to a wedding in Alabama in December of 2012. And before I came, I heard a voice, you're coming back married from this trip. And I was like, what? And I shook it off. And then 10 days later, you're coming back married from this trip. Right, because I've been meditating since I was 19 years old, so I have a very, very high sense of things that are happening. I hear things, I sense things, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Maybe I'll marry a banker from New York. Just making fun of whatever I had heard.
A Rockefeller.
Yeah, a Rockefeller. And but funny enough, I did meet a guy.
At that wedding?
Mm-hmm. Wow. And 3 days later, we decided to get married.
That's the second husband?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And he's American. So I went back to Brazil. And, I started to tell my friends. I was so afraid to tell my dad because we are very close, my dad and I. And I'm like, oh my God, what is my dad going to think? But anyway, so Lee, that's his name, Lee, he went to Brazil a month later. He spent 2 weeks there, brought my dog. I terminated all my contracts, sold my car, the condo that I lived is, being leased, my second PR till this day. And then I moved here in early 2013, February. And after some challenges with my health, because I had just, gotten my surgery and I was still understanding my body and how hormones work and blah, 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 I decided to translate my memoir that I had been working on in Brazil. After I had cancer, I couldn't work, but I need to produce. I need to produce. So I started working on my memoir in Portuguese. So when I moved here, I didn't really have anything to do. I started working on translating my memoir and making it into a novel, but still a memoir. And after 2 years, I decided to go back to work. And I said, I'm ready to go back to work. And Lee said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm just going to be Mila Matias.
Again.
He's like, but you don't know anybody here in this country, honey. In Brazil, you have a network, all these people, it's your country, it's your culture, how to navigate everything. Here, you don't know anybody. I said, oh, that's right. He's like, well, why don't you go get a master's in psychology or something? I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. So after researching, I decided to go get my master's in mental health counseling at Capella University. And I started that course at the beginning of 2015. We moved to Arizona. And then I finished it in 2018. That's when I completed my hours, internship. And I was here in Vegas already. So I moved around the country quite a bit to try to find a place called home. Orange County wasn't it. Scottsdale wasn't it. Chicago wasn't it. Vegas is it, right? Vegas is it. I love this community so much. And when I was doing work as a therapist back in 2018, I had a client and he said, Camille, how did you end up here? How did you become a therapist? And that's when I remembered my deal with God. I'm like, you know what? I made a deal with God back in 2012 and here I am. I'm on my path. This is great. I'm keeping my word. Cool. And so I finished my hours. I became a licensed clinical professional counselor. I passed the board exam. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a hypnotherapist now. I became a hypnotherapist. I set up my own private practice. I'm like, what's next? Oh, what's next is I'm going to start my PhD. Go, go, go. But then a year into my PhD, I burned out. Because again, I was not born to be in an office 6 to 8 hours a day, 4 times a week. So it was a traditional setting. And one day in September of 21, my brother was visiting from Brazil. We had some friends over from Summerlin. We were living in Henderson at the time. And they asked my ex-husband, said, how's your magazine going? Because he started Henderson City Lifestyle. And it's like, oh, my magazine's going great. And they said, oh, we love Red Rock. And he said, well, speaking of which, Christine Lindum, who founded Red Rock, she's selling it. I'm like, ding. I said, I want to buy this magazine.
Wow.
They all looked at me like, what? Yeah, I want to buy. Again, the voice. A little voice said, buy the magazine. I want to buy this magazine. Okay. They were like, but what about your PhD? I'm like, what about my PhD? I'll finish it. No problem. What about your practice? I said, what about my practice? What about it? I want to buy the magazine and I'm buying this magazine. So I did. I had some money saved. Lee chipped in and we bought the magazine. And the rest is history.
Wow. You truly can do it all. I mean, that's that story, right? Whatever you say,
be a little crazy, be a little bold,
yeah,
and believe in yourself, and you can do it all.
Wow. And again, I'm glad you came to share that with us, and you did it with such vulnerability. I know we could have another episode about hypnotherapy, because I know and all these techniques that you and I have talked about that you use to help people. But today we want to talk about the magazine. So let's dive into them.
Okay.
Because again, I know who gets these magazines, because, who's your target audience?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So City Lifestyle is a corporation that's existed since 2009. It started in Kansas City. And now they have over 200 magazines around the country, and each magazine is a franchise. It's independently owned. It's its own business. And their model is that the high net worth individuals of every community are the ones who are going to get the magazine. So I have certain zip codes for Red Rock. So that is in Summerlin. It goes to Reverence, Summit, the Cliffs, the Ridges, the $1 Million Homes in Section 10, and the newer part of Summerlin. In South Vegas, where you were featured, Jaime, goes to Southern Highlands, Rhodes Ranch, Spanish Trails, and the southwest part of Vegas.
And so, as Camilla was saying, I'm shy, Camilla, so but you did a good job. I am in June's issue.
Yes, and I think it's towards the front.
In the front. Yeah. And tell us about what is it called? Because again, I am on page 17.
Yes, you are. And very handsome. Look at you, Jaime.
You did marvels with the photo there. But tell us about this feature and why you do that one.
Yeah, so the magazine is really about the community. It's for the community. The magazine exists to promote the local businesses, people, and nonprofits here in our community. And that's what I love about it. And every month we have a theme that stories run centric to that theme. And June, because it's Father's Day, we have the June's...
the Gents.
The Gents Issue, yes. The Gents Issue. And my goal with the magazine is to bring inspiration, positivity, education, information to our residents. And I have an editor. I have a team. I have an editor. And every month we say, okay, what are we going to write, for this article? What kind of stories are we going to feature? And I said, I want to do inspiration with leaders in our community, with men that are leaders in our community. So, like their recipe for success. That's why you chose your drink. Mm-hmm. And every gentleman in there has a drink. The same thing in Red Rock. And so that's why we had this feature, is to, how can we inspire? How can we bring positivity and just dreams to our residents in the community? And that's why you were chosen too, because you are an inspiration.
Well, that's awesome, Camilla. Thank you. It was an honor to be a part of the magazine. Is there, in these years now that you've had it, the magazines, has there been an article of a story, maybe there's been a lot, but that has really stuck with you as impactful, who you felt was really something you were really proud of?
I love to feature, I call them underdogs. So the underdogs are the local nonprofits in our community that people don't know about and the important work that they do. One story that I really loved was there's a school on Durango. It is for children who have Down syndrome. And we did a story on that a couple of years ago, and that's really stuck to me through the years because they were so grateful that, someone paid attention to them, and they got a good traction, a lot of attention from the readers, and they were just so grateful. So I love that. That's one that stuck with me.
That's good, because you brought them exposure, and they probably benefited from that in the community.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And that's what I do. I help nonprofits. Every month you can see in the magazine, you're going to see an ad, a full page or half a page or both, for a nonprofit when they have events, fundraisers, just so that they can get the attention that they deserve, and I run stories about them as well.
In our community, as you said, a lot of times visitors or people who don't live here think about our community narrative as just the strip, just entertainment, just sports. But as you said, there's so much more tapestry in our community. What role do you think journalism or the articles you mentioned, the magazines, play in shaping a more complete narrative for our community?
Well, the magazines, so Red Rock's going to be 5 years old in November, and you're invited to the anniversary party in September.
All right.
Yeah. Wow. And South Vegas is the baby of the magazines. It's 3 years old. So my goal is really so I call myself a community builder and a storyteller. So my goal with the magazine is really to keep educating the community in several topics, show them, the bright side of life, really inspire them to be better every day. My welcome letter every month is really, inspirational. And the curious thing is that I noticed lately, I've been really honing into mental health. in my mindset, in my welcome letters, and even the articles that I write. It's about the importance of family, the importance of love, kindness, compassion, mindset, the importance to take risks in life. Yeah.
I know you and I have had conversations about that. And for some of us, it's harder letting go than others, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I love how you say you're a storyteller. And I know there's, to storytelling, there's so many aspects of it, the visual, the cadence of the storytelling, the volume. What's your favorite aspect of storytelling? Or is there more than just one?
I think it's the emotion that you bring to the reader. You help them. A story can help them reflect on their own lives and compare or remember some experiences that whatever they're reading brings them. That's my favorite part, is that emotion that you can bring out in people.
I love that. Yeah. And that, again, storytelling, as you said, you're in the format where they have to read it, but I'm sure that that's just as important where you're telling a story over TV or radio or podcasting or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's very good. So enough about work, though. We also want to learn about, the personal side of Camilla. I know. Because I picked up in
Are you sure you want to go there, Jaime?
I'm sure there's a lot of viewers who are saying, we heard about a first husband, second ex-husband, you said.
Yes.
So if some people want to get in line and, have a chance at the third.
Oh, that's so funny.
We need to tell them a little bit more about you.
That's funny.
But tell us about your life outside of work, because you are obviously capable of doing whatever you want in so many different fields, and you have a need to stay busy, to have meaning, to make impact. That takes a lot of energy. You must have a way to recharge. And so tell us about that. Where do you go find that energy that you need to do everything you've talked about?
The energy is always there. The energy is there, right? It's not like I'm going to create it from scratch, or it's there. I was born like this. Since I was little, people that I know in my family and out of my family, they've called me the energizing bunny.
Yeah.
Right? Never stops. But so I have ADHD tendencies. And I also have dyslexic tendencies. Wow. I'm not full-blown dyslexic or full-blown ADHD, but I do fall into the category of some of the symptoms. And luckily, I went into the meditation route, the mindfulness route, very young. So when I was 19, 20, I started to get interested in meditation. And I didn't mention this, but my mom was an alcoholic and addicted to pills. So growing up with a lot of anger issues, I was scattered. And so meditation was part of my healing. So it really helped me start to be grounded and really visualize how I want my life to be. And so till this day, I meditate every day, 15 minutes. The first thing that I do after I feed my cats, after I wake up, I feed my cats, and then I meditate for 15 minutes. I make sure that I work out at least 5 days a week. So then I meditate, I go to either yoga or I go to a high interval training class. I make sure to nurture my spirituality. And that the meditation is part of it, but my connection to God is super important. I have a coach, a mindset coach. I speak to her every morning from Monday to Friday for 15 minutes. I have sessions with her every week, either individually or in group. I crochet.
Wow.
I love wine. I love traveling. So every opportunity that I have, I'm traveling. So I just went to Germany a couple months ago to meet my aunt, my mom's half-sister, for the first time in my life. We reconnected. We connected. We're not reconnected, but we connected last year on Facebook. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go visit you. She's like, okay. She's 92 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing lady. So, and I reconnected with a friend from Brazil who's now living in Berlin. So that was a wonderful trip. I wrote an article about it that's coming out in July.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do that. I stay in touch with my family. I have 2 brothers as much as I can. I speak to my dad two times a week. And yeah, just, that's how I recharge, if that's even possible. Do you recharge doing all that? Yeah.
I know. You're just as busy in your recharging time that you are. But again, I think it's a testament to your personality. As you said, you have to be, I'm discovering that you are very disciplined to be able to stick, to what you need. You know that the 15 minutes every day with your coach is important. You know your yoga, your exercise is important, your meditation. And so that's already an hour of stuff that you dedicate every, meticulously every day. That discipline is really important.
And it's all self-care.
Yeah.
You're nurturing yourself, you're nurturing your soul. It's like, it's as tacky as this line is. You can't pour from an empty cup. You got to do things that fill your soul. And, I was meeting a friend yesterday, and we were talking about how numb, how desensitized people have become to their own lives, because they spend so much time on their phones that they don't feel anything anymore. They're so focused on the other, what's going on in the outer world. They forget to take care of themselves, and that's just sad.
Yeah.
You got to nurture yourself and nurture your soul.
Well, that's you're doing a really good job at it, and I hope that motivates some of our listeners and viewers. We also like to ask successful people like you who have overcome challenges, and because nothing's handed to you, you've earned it all. If you could talk to the 18-year-old version that you mentioned earlier, sometimes I think they wouldn't listen to us anyway, the 18-year-old version of ourselves. But if you could talk to that young Camilla, or even today, any young person who is at 18 facing barriers like the ones you face with, family issues, home issues, financial issues, what piece of advice would you give them to be able to say, don't worry, stick to these particular things and you'll have the same shot I have. You one day can do anything you want. Be a legal professional, be a doctor, be a PhD, own a magazine.
Right.
What's the secret sauce, Camilla?
So what's funny about the magazine, though? And this I remembered a couple of years ago. When I was 19, I remember thinking, wouldn't it be cool to have my own publication one day?
Wow.
And of course I said that and I forgot about it, right? But I believe in the power of manifestation.
Wow.
I believe in the power of prayer, the power of manifestation. So going back to the advice, don't take yourself too seriously is one thing that I would say to my 18-year-old self. Go have fun. Believe in yourself. And just do your best. Because I didn't have a plan, Jaime. And I know many people, you got to have goals. You got to have a plan. Like, no, you don't have to have a plan. You're figuring things out. And when you're 18, some people are so fortunate to know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. Some people are so fortunate. That's great. But I'm going to say that most of us have no clue at 18 what we want to do for the rest of our lives. Yeah. So just really learn who you are. There are several ways that you can do that, right? There are several resources if you have money or not. Universities have, these, they have teaching. They have students that are learning the profession, so they offer, treatments or processes for free or at a very low cost. You can go look for that. When you start having money, go look for a coach, for a therapist, right? But learning who you are, really connecting to that essence of you, it's what's really going to make a difference.
That's really good advice, yeah. And it seems simple, but it's not, because it doesn't happen in one event or one counseling session.
No, yeah. And it's not easy because sitting on that couch, having to open your heart, facing your demons, because you're facing your demons. A lot of people don't have that courage. Right. It's painful. Yeah. It's very painful, Jaime.
Well, that's really good advice. Yeah. One of the last things we like to do as we approach, I can't believe the podcast is almost over because
really?
It's like, it's flown by. But we also want to give you the opportunity to talk about events. I'm going to already be looking out for the July issue of the magazine because I want to read the article about Germany. But what other upcoming events, things should we have our eye open, attend? You talked about an event that I'm going to get invited to. But what things would you like our listeners, viewers to know about that they could keep their eye out for?
Yeah, so Red Rock, South Vegas. There's also Henderson. Henderson is published by someone else. So the two of us, Chrissy and I, we know that the magazine serves this community. That is the goal of the magazines. So we really promote, sponsor nonprofits and events. And so that's to be on the lookout for important causes that, and that's another thing. Go be a part of something. Go volunteer, even if it's like a day a month, right? Just be a part of something. This community is so incredible. Mm-hmm. There's not one thing to watch out for. Like there's always something going on in this community for, anybody who would like to be a part of it in so many areas. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Camilla, I can't thank you enough for being here. I think we're going to have you back for another episode to dive down into some of the hypnotherapy and other things.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about mental health.
That are so interesting. Yeah. I look forward to seeing you out still in the community. We're going to have an open house as well as we move our offices. And
where are you moving to?
Yeah, we'll be moving to the brand new Civic Plaza, which is being built by the city of Las Vegas. It's across City Hall, and it's a complex of buildings there. There's a municipal court, and there's a brand new 5-story building for city employees that will be centralized from multiple locations, and a 4-story building that we'll be sharing as of today with the Vegas Chamber. So Mary Beth and her team are coming. And
so they're leaving the Smith Center.
Yeah, they already have actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're in temporary space right now. Okay. But there'll be a big event, and hopefully you'll come and join us.
When?
Somewhere in September.
Okay. Okay.
The target occupancy date is September 1st.
Okay.
And so you know how that goes. If they give you the keys and you start to move in your furniture and your things, somewhere in September, there'll be a day where we say, okay, open doors, let's cut a ribbon.
All right, awesome.
And we'd love to have you there.
Happy to be there.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you, Camilla.
Thank you. Good to see you,
and
too.
And thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, and thank you for being an inspiration to our community.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the magazine.
My pleasure.
Well, that's it for another episode of the WC Podcast. We hope to see you at the next one. Until then, stay safe. Camilla, thank you for staying over to do our bonus segment called Against the Wall. Are you ready?
I was born ready.
Yes, you are.
Beware, that's all I'm saying.
Yes. We have 3 segments. We're going to start with the easy one. The first one's called Your Favorites.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a category, and you're going to give me your favorite thing in that category.
Time starts now.
Easy one.
Okay.
Favorite food.
Ooh, sushi.
Favorite beverage with dinner.
Wine.
Favorite dessert.
Tiramisu.
Favorite musical group or artist.
Oh, man. I listen to so much. Physical, blah.
Can be a couple.
Bossa Nova.
Oh, there you go.
There you
Brazil.
go.
Favorite movie.
Hitch.
Favorite book.
The Power of Now.
Favorite holiday.
Carnival.
Favorite professional sports team.
Corinthians.
Favorite Vegas professional sports team.
Ooh, Golden Knights. Easy one.
Well, you made it through the first segment. See, flying colors. The second one gets a little tougher. We actually call it tough choices. I'm going to give you 2 choices.
Okay.
And hopefully you can pick one. But if you can't, that's fine too.
All right.
Vacation or staycation?
Vacation.
When you go there, hotel or Airbnb?
Airbnb.
When you retire, whether it be on a ranch or in the city?
Don't know what retirement is, but it would be in a city.
If you can spend a day by the ocean or hiking in the mountains, which one?
Ocean.
If you could pick, if you could be a superhero, would you rather have the ability to fly or breathe underwater?
Oh, fly.
The ability to speak with animals or speak any foreign language?
Animals.
Truth or kindness?
Kindness. No, truth.
Actions or words?
Actions.
Justice or grace?
That's tough.
We finished?
Justice with grace.
Oh, there you go. We finished with the toughest one. So now you're ready for the last segment, and it's called Finish the Sentence. I'm going to give you 95% of the sentence. You're going to finish it for me. Are you ready?
No.
We're going to go anyway, Camilla. If Camilla could visit any place in the world, it would be...
India.
The best part about living here in Southern Nevada is...
Las Vegas. The people.
Camilla's favorite thing about her job at City Lifestyle is...
The people.
If Camilla could travel back in time, she would travel to...
Say hello to her dog.
Wow. And 3 words that describe Camilla are...
Funny, honest, and pretty.
I couldn't agree more. Last one. Doing the WC podcast here with us today was...
Amazing.
Well, Camilla, thank you for staying.